As kids go back to school, let's remember it only 61 years since we are allowed to receive proper education thanks to brave Ruby Bridge. At the tender age of 6, Ruby Bridges advanced the cause of civil rights in November 1960, when she became the first African American student to integrate an elementary school in the South. Born on September 8, 1954, Bridges was the oldest of 5 children for Lucille and Abon Bridges, farmers in Tylertown, Mississippi. When Ruby was 2 years old, her parents moved their family to New Orleans, Louisiana in search of better work opportunities. Ruby's birth year coincided with the U.S. Supreme Court's landmark ruling in Brown v. the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, which ended racial segregation in public schools. Nonetheless, Southern states continued to resist integration, and in 1959, Ruby attended a segregated New Orleans kindergarten. A year later, however, a federal court ordered Louisiana to desegregate. The school district created entrance exams for African American students to see whether they could compete academically at the all-white school. Ruby and 5 other students passed the exam. Her parents were torn about whether to let her attend the all-white William Frantz Elementary School, a few blocks from their home. Her father resisted, fearing for his daughter's safety. Her mother, however, wanted Ruby to have the educational opportunities that her parents had been denied. Meanwhile, the school district dragged its feet, delaying her admittance until November 14. 2 of the other students decided not to leave their school at all. The other 3 were sent to the all-white McDonough Elementary School. Ruby and her mother were escorted by 4 federal marshals to the school every day that year. She walked past crowds screaming vicious slurs at her. Undeterred, she later said she only became frightened when she saw a woman holding a black baby doll in a coffin. She spent her first day in the principal's office due to the chaos created as angry white parents pulled their children from school. Ardent segregationists withdrew their children permanently. Barbara Henry, a white Boston native, was the only teacher willing to accept Ruby, and all year, she was a class of 1. Ruby ate lunch alone and sometimes played with her teacher at recess, but she never missed a day of school that year. While some families supported her bravery, and some Northerners sent money to aid her family, others protested throughout the city. The Bridges family suffered for their courage. Abon lost his job, and grocery stores refused to sell to Lucille. Her sharecropping grandparents were evicted from the farm where they had lived for a quarter century. Over time, other African American students enrolled. Many years later, Ruby's 4 nieces would also attend. In 1964, artist Norman Rockwell celebrated her courage with a painting of that first day entitled, "The Problem We All Live With." Ruby graduated from a desegregated high school, became a travel agent, married and had 4 sons. She was reunited with her first teacher, Henry, in the mid-1990s, and for a time, the pair did speaking engagements together. Ruby later wrote about her early experiences in 2 books and received the Carter G. Woodson Book Award. Bridges, now Ruby Bridges Hall, still lives in New Orleans. A lifelong activist for racial equality, in 1999, Ruby established the Ruby Bridges Foundation, where she is now chair of the Ruby Bridges Foundation. Promote tolerance, respect, and appreciation and create change through education, of all differences. Describing the mission of the group, she says, "Racism is a grown-up disease and we must stop using our children to spread it." In 2000, she was made an honorary deputy marshal in a ceremony in Washington, D.C. In 2010, Bridges had a 50th-year reunion at William Frantz Elementary with Pam Foreman-Testroat, who had been, at the age of 5, the first white child to break the boycott that ensued from Bridges' attendance at that school. On July 15, 2011, Bridges met with President Barack Obama at the White House, and while viewing the Norman Rockwell painting of her on display, he told her, "I think it's fair to say that if it hadn't been for you guys, I might not be here and we wouldn't be looking at this together." The Rockwell painting was displayed in the West Wing of the White House, just outside the Oval Office, from June through October 2011. Ruby Bridges is only 67 years old.